Hey everybody, this is Steve Moore, owner of Run More, this brick and mortar running shop in Carroll County, Maryland. Thank you so much for checking us out and tuning in for the review of the new Brooks Ghost 13. This is one of those shoes that always garners a lot of attention. People are always interested in when the new model comes out for a variety of reasons. Either they're excited for the new one or they want to make sure they stock up on the old one. This shoe was originally supposed to come out in July of 2020. It's always a July release, but with everything that happened, they ended up pushing it back to August. We were starting to see some sprinkling of shoes that were coming out a little bit into July, but for the most part, everything will be coming out, all their colorways, all their widths, everything will be coming out in August. So we're excited to have a sneak peek of some of the stuff that's different about this shoe. Yeah, definitely, as I mentioned, a lot of people were always anxious about this shoe. And a lot of people would come in and they would just say a number. And this was one of those shoes, when they said it, we knew what they were talking about. They'd come in and say, I always run in the Brooks 11, or I run, I have a pair of 9s at home, and they didn't even know the model, they just knew the number. And that always told us, obviously, that this is a shoe they've had on for some time and they're pretty comfortable with. It's also one of the shoes that we get more people to come in and recommend. They say, my neighbor got a pair of the Brooks, and they told me that I should come down and get it. And almost always it's this shoe that they're talking about. It checks a lot of boxes as well because it's an easy shoe to recommend because it fits really well for a lot of people, and it really accommodates most people's foot and foot sizes. We even get people that will recommend it from like PT offices or podiatrists that might not even know a ton about shoes, but they know that this is a good one. This shoe will give you some support in a couple different ways. We had somebody this past weekend who was recommended from somebody who was a physical therapy person from out of the area, and they said, get the Ghost, it's the biggest, most motion controlled cushion shoe that you can buy out there. Not true at all. But it just kind of says something to that's already in the perception of their head that like this is a good shoe, and they've probably been recommending this shoe or something like this shoe for a long time, and they felt comfortable recommending people to this shoe because it's going to be a step up from everything people have had for most people that they're coming into. And because this shoe is it accommodates so many people, the price point is great, and what this shoe does, it's really easy for somebody to feel really great stepping into the shoe if they're brand new to running and they've been running in something, just casual. They've been wearing a pair of old Nikes, they've been wearing a Fila, whatever it may be that they've just used as their athletic shoe for years and years. And then you come in and you put them in a Ghost, and it's immediate. You can just see like, oh, this is what a real shoe should feel like. So a lot of times we'll use this shoe as a baseline as well. If we're gonna try a couple different things, maybe some neutral stuff, some stability stuff, we can get a sense of like, here is a mid-cushion neutral shoe, which is exactly what this shoe is. Let's get a sense from here if you like something with maybe a little more cushion, maybe a little less, maybe you want some more stability, maybe a little less, whatever it may be. But this is just that perfect right down the middle road shoe that can accommodate a lot of people in a lot of distances and a lot of activities that they're doing. So what this shoe means, a mid-cushion neutral shoe. So there are shoes that are lighter, stuff that's like a Launch, and there's stuff that is heavier and more cushion, stuff like the Glycerin. And what a lot of brands will do, I'm gonna hold up the women ones too. A lot of brands will have that sort of family of shoes, right? They'll have stuff that might be a light, neutral cushion shoe for maybe workouts, races, that kind of stuff. They'll have a mid-cushion neutral shoe that a lot of people use as their everyday, their trainer, this is their best friend that they're gonna put on in the mornings to go do their runs. And they might have something that's a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, maybe for somebody who's doing longer miles, who wants more cushion. That weight of the shoe maybe not be a big issue, or maybe for a lot of people that might be their marathon day shoe because it's gonna have more cushion than what they've been training in. So a lot of brands will have this mid-cushion neutral shoe, and they sort of, we say, tell the story of different ways. So if you come in and you say, I love the Brooks Ghost, but I'm gonna start doing some track workouts, you can really easily pivot them into something like a Launch because it's sort of in the same classification family-wise, but lighter and faster and springier. And again, when you get into lighter, faster, springier, a lot of times the price point dictates as well. So you can start to see like this shoe will be a little bit less than this shoe, and then something like the Glycerin will be a little more than this shoe, and it's by design. You're gonna get a little more out of that shoe. But because this is that mid-cushion neutral, it's that perfect shoe that you can put on almost everybody, and they're gonna feel some relief. It's gonna feel like a way better upgrade than what they've been coming in previously, especially if they're new to the running game. So a couple small little changes that they've made on this shoe from previous iterations. Nothing really life-changing on here. They did shave some weight down. I noticed it as soon as I put it down. It did feel a little bit less. It's not a ton of difference. On the men's, we've gone from like 10.4 ounces to 10.1, and the women went from 9.3 ounces to 8.8. So nothing crazy, but it feels a good bit lighter. And I think what that lightness is they really put some energy into making the upper more breathable. So this is the 12. And it's kind of hard to tell, but while I love the upper on this, it's definitely thicker. It definitely is not nearly as breathable as this one is. So I think that's part of just a little bit of weight. but it's the breathability that really makes it, in my opinion, that gives you that perception of lightness that this shoe has. And again, this was a great shoe, but I can tell just feeling that the way that this stretches around my foot and the way that it breathes, that's a nice noticeable upgrade that I felt right away. I have sort of wider feet. I have some toe issues and such going on. Don't we all have our own little foot issues, especially if you've been a runner as long as I have? And so sometimes I'll wear a wide shoe. Sometimes I just need a little bit of extra width, or I need a shoe I call, for men I call it a D+. It might not be technically a wide shoe, but it's a more accommodating wide. And right away with this, what they call their 3D stretch material, this shoe is going to expand around your foot a little bit more. It's going to give a little bit more stretch to it. And I tell you, I honestly, because of that, and that has been something they've been using for the past 2 years, that 3D stretch, I felt more stretchy in this shoe than I did in the previous version, for sure, right away. And again, I don't know if it's the breathability or just better material that they used here, but it definitely holds my foot a little more forgiving, and I definitely would need a little bit wider shoe. And I have in Brooks shoes in the past gone up to a wide just to accommodate my foot. They do make this shoe in widths as well. Not all the colorways are available in wide, but they will on the men. They'll do a 2E, and on the female side, they'll do a D. They also have a select couple models that'll make it a narrow as well. So pretty much across the board, you're gonna find a version of the Ghost that you can get in a width that makes sense for you, and most likely a color that makes sense for you. They make this shoe because it is so popular in a ton of different colors, a ton of different ways that you want to do it. And this is one of the shoes, along with the launch, that a lot of time they'll do special season releases. You might find somebody in like a red, white, and blue one, or something that's got like just crazy little designs and such. Or sometimes they'll sponsor a really big race and they'll make a whole colorway just for that race. So going back to our mid-cushion neutral, we've talked about what the mid-cushion is. We've talked about we have some stuff that's lighter and stuff that's heavier. What are we talking about when we're talking about a mid-cushion neutral? So we're talking about a shoe that is not going to fix you. That's pretty much what we're talking about when we're talking about a neutral shoe. So whatever your natural inclination is in this shoe, it's just going to accommodate you. Their big thing in the shoe is their DNA loft, and that's the cushion blend. That's what they're using, their proprietary blend, to kind of protect you as you're running through. And it has that blend all the way through. It's got that 12 millimeter stack height from heel to toe, which is the same as it's been, and it's got this DNA loft that goes all the way through the shoe. And whatever you do, whether you're landing here, you're landing here, you're landing here, you're landing here, it's just going to kind of give you cushion all the way through your gait cycle, all the way through your stride, and give you protection to roll you through. It's not going to fix you, it's just going to give you a really great, nice cushioned feel all the way through your cycle. So if you're somebody who maybe slightly overpronates or somebody who slightly underpronates, this shoe is going to be fine, especially if you're not having injury difficulties with it. When somebody comes in here, we'll ask them a ton of questions. We'd like to see the shoes they've been wearing. We'll get them on this little fancy machine right there. We'll put them in this little foot bath thing here, and it gets a bunch of images. It's got a bunch of cameras. It's got all kinds of information that we ascertain from that, and we kind of see what their strike looks like. And it's not always as simple as, somebody might roll to the inside, so we need to put more stability there, or somebody just rolls to the outside, we need to put some more extra protection on that side. We ask a bunch of questions. We try to dig in a little bit of what's going on with you and maybe your injury history. So sometimes somebody comes in with a shoe that's a neutral shoe. They've been wearing a neutral shoe for a while, and they have just a little bit of overpronation wear on the side, but they have nothing that's bothering them. There's no injury history. They feel great, or whatever it may be, and they've been wearing a neutral shoe forever. I might not mess with it. I might not add some extra stability to it, because sometimes just having the right amount of cushion and it just works with you instead of against you, that seems to be enough to help people. Technically, a person who wears down the inside of their foot that has weaker, flatter feet needs that extra stability, but sometimes just upgrading to a new shoe or a shoe that has just better cushion lines throughout it will give you enough support there. If somebody who wears down the middle or wears way on the outside, technically you want to put them in a neutral category shoe. It seems somewhat counterintuitive that if you're somebody who kind of lands on the outside of your foot, it feels like that you would say, I'm not stable. I need some extra stability in my shoe. I should get a stable shoe. Well, most of your stable shoes are really only protecting you on that medial side, so it will actually exacerbate that problem. It'll push you further to the outside. So what you want to do is wear a shoe that's neutral or a shoe that has outside protection to it, which there's not a ton of them, but there are some models that have these guide rails or extra protection on the outside to roll you in. But if you're just somebody who naturally rolls to the inside, either a shoe that's got that or just a straight neutral shoe is what you want. And that's just going to kind of hopefully level you out, but what it's not going to do is force you even further this way out. So a lot of times when someone will come in with a shoe like this, that neutral cushion shoe, it will tell a good story about what they're doing, because this shoe is not pushing or pulling you any which way. This is a great indication of what you do. Because while I love getting information on my little foot scanner here and down here. Sometimes the shoe will tell us even more than we can get from there. So this is a great baseline shoe to figure out what's going on with your foot. But because depending on what's going on with your history, broken bones, plantar fasciitis, we might go differently. This shoe is going to accommodate so many different people. And especially because it has this, we call this real plush step-in feel. And that's one thing Brooks always really prides itself on is it winning at the fitting station, is that when somebody puts the shoe on, it just feels and accommodates their foot the right way. When people come in and they'll say, what's a shoe supposed to feel like? They'll put it on, what is it? And it's a tough question to kind of answer. But a lot of times they'll just say, you just know. You just know. And this shoe is that perfect example of that you just know, or it's like, if it's right or wrong for you. I say like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears kind of thing is like, it's not too light, it's not too heavy, it's right there in the middle. It puts my foot on, it's plush, it's accommodating, it's stretchy, it's not too heavy. I can feel like I have some protection, but I don't feel like it's pushing or pulling me. It works with me. That's exactly what this shoe is. And so the idea of putting a shoe on and sort of knowing is what our goal is. Again, we want to have about 3/8 of an inch off the big toe in a running shoe. So you want to make sure you have a little bit of length, but you want to make sure that it's not one of those shoes where like, it feels pretty good. I think I'm going to need to give it a couple runs before it really breaks in and I feel like we're part of that shoe. You should put it on and know. And that's one thing Brooks has really put a lot of energy into, is putting a shoe on and just knowing that it was made for your foot, that it accommodates you and you feel comfortable and safe in that shoe. And that's definitely something that they were trying to do with this shoe. So I mentioned sort of the fast shoe and the heavy shoe, and like, what is this shoe designed for? Like, what should you be doing in this shoe? And I'll say sometimes in our videos that we do, where I'll say, I wouldn't recommend this shoe for a marathon, and people will comment, well, I've run a marathon in it. Totally fine. This is just sort of in a perfect world scenario. This to me is your perfect training shoe. This is I'm going out there and running anywhere from a mile to 10, 12 miles, and I feel great and nothing's bothering me, and I'm training for life. I'm training for a half marathon. Maybe I'm training for a marathon, but it's down the road a little bit. This is that perfect everyday shoe. You can do this stuff, you can wear this shoe for gym stuff as well, but to me it depends on the activities that you're doing and again, your injury history and such. So because it has a pretty decent heel set, the height of the heel is higher than the toe. You can see it's already kind of doing one of these guys. If you're doing stuff that's really weight bearing, if you're doing a lot of like lifting, I really don't like this shoe, because if you think you're already off balance this way, if you want to be more grounded and you want to have better sense of the ground and just be more balanced in general, you don't want to already be lifted. If you're doing just general cardio, run around, lift a few weights here and there, doing just general gym exercises, it's totally fine. And if you're doing a class that had some side-to-side mobility, again, I'm not so jazzed about having that high of a heel toe drop, but again, if you're just a casual workout person, it's totally fine. This can be your everyday shoe for a ton of different activities. And because of that, this is one of those shoes that we see a ton of people just using as walk around casual shoes of just, I wear a running shoe to work. I just need something comfortable. I'm a nurse. I'm a whatever that job may be where you can wear an athletic shoe. That again, by the way, one of the greatest things ever about doing what I'm doing here is I get to wear running shoes to work. It's the best. Anyway, if you're one of those people fortunate enough to be able to wear running shoes to work every day, this has been a really popular one because again, you can just kind of wear it for everyday stuff. In a perfect world for me, this being your everyday training shoe that you might use for, again, a mile, a 5K, a 10K, half, whatever it may be, you might have a shoe that is a different shoe for your race day stuff, or a shoe that might be a little bit different for especially if you're doing a full and you're getting into those 16, 18, 20s. And I totally understand. There are people that don't have a zillion different shoes at their disposal. I'm not saying you can't wear this shoe, but in a perfect world for me, you have a shoe that might be a little more protection for you if you're going to be going longer, especially if you're not trying to break 2 hours for a marathon, if you're not going after that record, if you're doing a long run that's going to take you 2-3 hours to complete, and if you're doing a full marathon that's going to take you 4 whatever hours to complete, it just makes sense to me that you're going to protect yourself a little bit more. And you shouldn't have the same shoe that you would wear for a 45-minute run around the neighborhood that you're going to wear for a 4.5 hour run through the streets of Baltimore. So you want to have that special shoe. And then conversely, if you're wearing this as your training shoe and you are trying to break 3 hours in a full, or you're trying to go out there and run a massive PR for yourself, or whatever that goal may be, it would make sense that maybe you would have a shoe that's a little bit lighter for that race day shoe, so you can feel yourself as like, I love having a shoe that I wear that's a little bit heavier, and then if I want to go fast, I have a shoe that's a little bit lighter. That's, I've just always been, that's how you're sort of in college and high school and such, when you have that racing shoe, your spike, your flat, whatever it may be, and it feels really good when you put that special race day shoe on. So again, this could be a training shoe, and then maybe you have something that's faster for your race day shoe. But I just personally don't like a shoe that I do a beefy amount of my training in as also the same shoe that I'm going to use on my race day, or maybe even the same shoe I'm going to use on my speed work day. I might have a special shoe for that, and depending on what the workout is, I might be a variety of different shoes. But again, I'm kind of goofy with shoes. So I hope that answered a bunch of questions. This shoe is $130. You can order it through our website, which we certainly appreciate. And if you enter the promo code RUNMORE, no spaces, it will save you 10%. We'll ship it out for free. There's a bunch of different color options that are coming on the shoe. There's a lot of fun stuff with it. So if you have any questions on this shoe, feel free to leave it down below in the comments. I'll try to get back to everybody the best we can. If you can like and subscribe and all that good stuff, that really does help us kind of find a new group of people to find our lovely store here. So thank you so much. Thanks for all the support, and have a great summer of running. And we have a bunch of new great reviews coming out because a lot of stuff has been adjusted because of COVID. So stay tuned, and we'll see you out there.